18 after 9 on this Wednesday morning. Now, water is one of South Africa's scarcest resources, we know, and as National Water Week is marked, government is urging people to use this resource sparingly. But while availability is a challenge, what is being done about accessibility? Some parts of the country are still without water, while in others, people have to travel long distances to collect clean water. Let's talk about it all now with the department's Sputnik Ratau. Sputnik, a very good morning, and thanks so much for your time. And I suppose more than ever, the pandemic year that we've experienced, and we still are experiencing, has shown us has shown up the sort of inequalities when it comes to water. What have been your observations and our lessons learned, especially over this past year, in terms of accessibility?
You're very correct. The pandemic has really pushed us to almost the very limit. But it has also afforded us an opportunity to be able to get to grips with some of the things that we were not aware that we could be able to do, especially to when we got into the intervention mode after the pandemic was declared a national disaster. We had to get into a situation where all of these places where it has been difficult to deliver services had to have those services as urgently as possible. And that assisted us to be able to think outside the box, but also engage with our sister departments, including National Treasury, COCTA, and so on, to be able to see how we can be able to together work towards the common good.
So where have you identified as still being our problem areas? We know there are some areas that are still drought-stricken. We've seen NGOs go in, NGOs like Gift of the Givers go in to actually provide water that where the department couldn't provide before. Where are you still concentrating? Which are the areas?
We are still very, very concerned about the two water supply systems in the Eastern Cape, the Algoa and the Amatole. They are still really badly. But we also are still concerned about especially the rural provinces, your Limpopo, your KZN, the Eastern Cape itself, because where we still have, a lot of our population sparsely populated over vast areas, and especially in areas where the topography doesn't really help us to be able to bring services because of just the conditions there. That is where we're still battling. We have been able to engage with some of those municipalities and ourselves, together with the private sector, by the way, Yuveka, to try and see how it is that we can be able to access those areas in the first place, but also bring those services in. We have had some successes, we have had some drawbacks, and we still are continuing to have some challenges in some.
So how far would you say that this COVID-19 and where we found ourselves, and like you say, where you picked up or were able to concentrate on sort of previously disadvantaged or the areas that previously didn't have proper access to water, how much would you say this has actually kicked you into gear and have you managed to actually achieve in terms of solving problems that were difficult to solve even before COVID-19 and in terms of our goals and what the constitutional obligations are for water provision?
The fact is that we still have a long way to go, especially in terms of providing fully fledged services, with infrastructure in place, but more importantly, infrastructure that is fully functional, because that is also some of the drawbacks that we have seen in some areas where it is not a question of that, the water is not there, but it is not able to reach the people because it then gets lost along the way. So that is one of our biggest bugbears. But secondly, it is also a question of making sure that, we actually are able to educate South Africans in terms of water conservation and less pollution. Because pollution is actually cross-cutting. It is not just, domestic. It is also industrial, it is mining, it is agriculture. So we have to look at all of those things and say, how do we actually then move forward to say, now that we've been able to move this far, how do we maintain and sustain those services? I think the sustenance of the services is the bigger challenge now.
Well, Sputnik, there is a national water and sanitation master plan. It sort of lays out the top priorities when it comes to water provision and accessibility as well. And it's being said that if it's followed, we can avoid a projected 17% water deficit by 2030. Are you confident that we can still realize that, factoring in climate change as well and the challenges that it poses?
Yuveka, yes, we are very confident that if we can keep to what we are seeing, and also considering the fact that the master plan, as we have put the concept together, we regard it as a living document, that it has to evolve with time as well. Because as we continue to bring in, especially your private sector, be it expertise or funding, as we continue to bring in the cooperation between ourselves, communities, and other sectors of the community, we then begin to see how, as a country and as a people, we are able to have a common understanding. And that basic common understanding of how we have to look at the challenges of water, considering the fact that the fiscus is obviously not going to be able to give us the full backing of the requirements of water and sanitation supplies or services that are required in order for us to be able to cater for all South Africans.
Sputnik, I mean, you're at the department, you sit up top there. Obviously, I'm assuming that you rely on feedback that you get from municipalities, from local governments as well. And I'm going to bring in the big C word here, which is corruption. And, we've heard the complaints over the years that people are so busy stealing money that they actually couldn't care about the people, the very people we talk about, walking long distances to get clean water, those who actually don't have. Have you managed to identify those problem municipalities, those problem local governments as well? Are you getting more cooperation, or are you finding that as a department you have to go out and have a look for yourself? And is that part of the plan as well, to go out and find out? Or are you getting enough feedback to be able to fix the problems where they exist?
Yuveka, it is a combination. We have to go out ourselves because we have an interest in how far we have been able to do the work and how far it is impacting on South Africans. But it is also a question of, when we get feedback, especially from communities, those that are either not being served at all or those that have got services that break down from time to time. And then thirdly, it is the kind of thing that is going to be able to assist us a great deal going forward. And that is cooperation amongst ourselves as government, and therefore bringing in the communities into the field as well. And the cooperation and kind of working relations that are evolving between ourselves as the department and particularly as the Ministry of both Human Settlements and Water and Sanitation, with the Ministry and the Department of COCTA, and so on, where we even are at the point where when the Minister of COCTA has her get-together with the mayors and the municipal managers and so on, our minister and our department is actually brought in to say, let us also have an understanding of how, if you guys don't do the work from your local government point of view, what the impact is on the services that are being delivered by the other sector of government. And those things have been able to break down the kind of silo mentality. And all of a sudden then we see that as government, we have to push together, otherwise we are going to be fragmented and not be able to achieve much.
And the other thing that came out, especially since the start of COVID and a year on Sputnik, was when it comes to sanitation and the issue of whether we can send our kids to school. Some schools are absolutely not equipped. Still very difficult to believe in 2021 that some schools don't have flushing toilets. Pit latrines still exist in some parts of South Africa. We have the sort of watchdog NGOs that go out and report back every so often. What's your update? What's your understanding of how much progress has been made when it comes to, especially with kids having to go back to school now, still in the time of COVID, just what progress has been made in giving them the facilities that they need to actually not get sick and be able to go to school?
That is still a very big challenge for government in reality, Rebecca. During the time when the Department of Basic Education set aside an amount of closer to around 600 million for us to be able to assist with the delivery of water basically to those schools that were identified. It made a huge difference in the sense that it then implied that those school children do not have to take time off in order to go and fetch water elsewhere rather than come to school. That's the one part. But the second part is that we also then began to say, how do we support the Department of Basic Education even more than what we are doing? Because we do have a working relationship with the Department of Basic Education where, although it is their responsibility to look at the issue of sanitation in schools, but they cannot do it without us. So it is still work in progress to a large extent. We still are having those challenges of schools with pit latrines and so on.
But why those?
We have to work.
Why are we still having those problems? I mean, it's 2021, like we say. Like you say, you have to work closely with the Basic Education Department. So where's the hold-up? Is it their department? Is it yours?
Well, basic education has got to ensure that, the infrastructure is in place. But they cannot do it without working together with other arms of government. And therefore, we have to see how we can be able to bring our own expertise in order to expedite how they are able to deliver those. But the numbers are quite huge. We still have to work towards areas that do not have water, for instance, and therefore the issue of flushing toilets may not be a reality. And we have to work together with our colleagues at Water Research Commission, the CSIR from the Department of Science and Innovation, to see what are the new technologies that are going to be able to assist us to bring relief, even though it is not flushing toilets. But because we can be able to bring other new technologies that are coming onto the market, how quickly can we bring them on? I think that is where the biggest aim has got to be.
Yeah, and it is indeed a matter of urgency. Sputnik Ratau from Water and Sanitation, thank you so much for that, chatting to us here during National Water Week.